A major highlight from week 8 was a profound synchronicity that happened at Future Food Tech Conference this week, connecting the dots from the past to the future. Hey, it's Alissa heading into week 8, and I'm just doing the update on the Cheese 2.0 Relaunch campaign. A lot has happened. If you are part of the community of people that's been supporting me through the GoFundMe campaign, I hope to have a really exciting announcement about that in the next week or two. Some of you might be aware that I did, we crossed the first milestone a few weeks ago, which was the making cheese milestone, and I've kind of paused on the campaign since then because I was just sort of regrouping and putting the pieces in place, and I have now, met and exceeded that goal, just in terms of the logistics. And so I'm going to be presenting sort of the path forward, the second phase of the campaign that I'd kind of been pausing on because I wanted to really get organized so that I can focus the effort towards that goal. So in the next week or two, we should have an exciting announcement about that. But this week has been really kind of magical in the sense I had this very, very profound synchronicity that happened that I was going to tell you about. So if you've been following the campaign, and I should mention, as I did last week, that I've started to organize all these weekly videos into a playlist so that if you're interested in following the journey, it's all organized into a playlist that you can access all at once, and I think this is a really interesting perspective to look back on, after a period of time, like a year or, a longer length of time, because really success, how you see it in like the press or the media, it's like these big profound things that happen and it looks like, oh, that person was just lucky, or but it's not really like that. It's really much like slower, intentional movement, and some kind of just pulling the lid off on that, so that just to make it transparent. And I hope this will inspire other people to get involved in this kind of venture. But to access that, go to my website, asianwarriorprincess.com, click on YouTube, and there's a number of playlists showed there. There's one about the business, so I have weekly updates there, and then there's another one that's kind of about this garden project that I'm doing. You can kind of see behind me that it's quickly exploding, so check that out. But as far as the synchronicity goes, I spoke in week 5 about the science behind the cheese, and I talked about how I used to be a scientist. I used to work in biotech, actually, and I had a really bad experience, and I elaborated more about this in the week 5 video. I'll link it up here too. But yeah, I had a really bad experience, so I disowned that part of myself, and I was kind of like in denial about it because it was just really painful. And it's funny because the foundation of the cheese is based in science, so that part of me was still there, but it's just like it wasn't really talked about, it was just there. And I also talked about in the week 5 video how, like, the day after I quit science, I bought a guitar and wrote this song called American Cheese, and it ended up being super prophetic. But what I didn't mention in that video was, this is so crazy. The reason why I kind of got kicked out or fired from being a scientist was because the way that we were doing the research that I was doing at the time, I was doing gene mapping. And you look for correlations between like a certain disease presentation or phenotype and certain genetic markers. And so it's like there's all this statistical analysis, and I don't want to get too technical, but the way that we were doing it was based on like a linear model. So like trying to make a straight line relationship and make that work, you know. And so that was like really, it was introducing a bias into how we were analyzing the data just by the way that we were doing it. And so what I did was I started using AI, artificial intelligence methodology, and I had written a program, a machine learning neural network type program, to analyze the data using a different it's basically a different statistical bias, because if you're going to use one bias, like, you should use the opposite bias, and you know, to find something integrative in the middle, you know. And I totally did this from the best intentions, and I worked really hard, and I was completely slammed down, and I was completely just crushed. And you know, people thought I was crazy, like nobody saw the benefit in what I was doing. And you know, I don't want to say too much negative about it, but I will say that, you know, I do believe that if I was a man and I had presented this, I would have had a completely different experience than the one that I had. And this was super devastating for me at the time. I ended up going back into the food business, but I feel like I need to speak out about it now, because I know I'm not the only person that this has happened to, but it's very life altering, you know, and it's crazy. But the reason why I'm bringing this all up today is because last week I mentioned I was going to go to a conference about, you know, it was specifically focused on plant-based food tech. And so my background is in biomedical science. Well, not so much food science, but I have a background in biotech, in like the wellness aspect of biotech, and I have a background in food because I worked in the food business for 30 years. So I have a really unique background in the sense that a lot of people get trained in food science, which is in the middle, and I'm kind of like neither one of those things, but I understand the methodologies that are being used because I used to work in biotech. But the crazy thing, this is so crazy, you know, especially like if you watch the week 5 video, because like I said, I wrote this song called American Cheese the day after I quit science because I was just crushed, you know. And I go to this conference last week not knowing what to expect, you know. And it turns out that there's been this total evolution that's happened, and like this methodology that I was using, the machine learning artificial intelligence methodology, it's like commonplace now. And not only that, but it's being used now to make to model making like plant-based foods. And so it's being used, it's starting to be used with plant-based cheese, but also with meats and etc. And I'm just like, OMG, this is like totally full circle. So the whole reason I got kicked out of being a scientist was for learning this methodology. Now this is being used to make plant-based cheese. So it's just like, oh my gosh, like this all went down exactly how it was supposed to. I'm in the right place at the right time. And I kind of can't believe it. I mean, it's just like the most bizarre, profound coincidence that like you can even really imagine. But this is getting long-winded, so I'm just, I could talk about this for a long time, but I'm not going to, because I don't want this video to get too long. But anyways, the point is that I'm on the right track. I've accomplished phase 1, milestone 1 of the GoFundMe campaign, mission accomplished. So I'm now looking to do the second half of the campaign, and I'm going to make an announcement about that real soon. And this is all about building a bridge to the future of plant-based cheese, and all of the videos leading up to this, I think, kind of feed into the path that I'm going to blaze forward. So hopefully in the next week or two, I'll have a really exciting announcement for you. I'm just putting some other things in place because I just want it to be very cohesive, and I don't want it to be fragmented when I present it. So look forward to that, and we'll check in soon with another update.